Hey folks, Quilly here with a quickie Civilization 7 video that is hopefully going to be a helpful hint for you players getting to the game, some useful information, and B, kind of a correction about a kind of a mistake that might be present in some of my Let's Play videos. Here's why. This is currently the preview build. What I've got loaded up here is the preview build that I had access to for Civ 7 for several weeks, and what I did all my practice on, and what I did a good number of my recordings on. However, I also now have access to the release version of Civ 7, which is also what some of my videos were recorded on. And in between the two, there have been a number of different fixes, but one thing notably is I have frequently complained, when I look at a village, let's say I look at Ravenna, there is no, this is a fishing town, it's sending all of its food to a city. But there is no way, note this section over here, there is no way for me to tell, and this only applies to the preview build, no way for me to tell where Ravenna is sending its food to. No indication here, no indication over here. All I could do is be like, okay, this makes 28.5 food. If I go to a city like Rome and I check its food income, okay, I'm getting 28.5 food from some town, so presumably it is Ravenna. One of the things I ran into in one of my practice games is I went to war with an AI, and then I had a peace deal, and then in a peace deal I took one of their towns, and it was something like, for example, like taking Janet over here, except it wasn't coastal, it was landlocked and behind enemy towns. And that town could not send its food anywhere, as far as I can tell, which meant that that town, there was no reason to ever convert it into like a farming town or anything like that because it wasn't sending its food. The thing to do would be to either keep it as a growing town so that it would get bigger and eventually later be useful, or convert it into a city. But there was no way for me to confirm that, and that always sat very poorly with me. But that was only the preview build. In the live version, things have in fact changed. That problem is no longer a problem, but I didn't realize that in some of my videos, and so I might have still made a bit of a complaint about it, despite the fact that we can in fact tell. Okay, now this is the release version of the game. This is the newly updated one that I've had my hands on for a tiny little while now, and should be the same as what you will be playing when you get your release version of Civ 7. If I go to Rome here and open the city panel, now I do get information about which village is sending food to Rome. This secondary page over here, which is the only place I used to be able to check whether or not a city was getting any food whatsoever, and so I likely will be checking this numerous times over the course of this playthrough. By the way, at the point I'm recording this, I'm already in the modern age of the playthrough, so I might still be saying the incorrect thing for a few more episodes here. But I used to be able to check here and see that it was connected to something and then attempt to do math for it. And I do still think this should have the name of the town. I think this should say yield from Ravenna town, yield from whichever other town, Capua town, or whoever is sending me this. I think the names should still be here. But turns out it's not required because that information is here in the release build. Not only that, but if we look at a village like Ravenna, and open up the detail screen, we do confirm, in fact, that the village does send it over to Rome. Now, there are still two areas of complaints that I want to note over here. If I go and switch this back to a growing town, now this is just on growing town. It is not sending its food anywhere. I don't believe there's anywhere still that shows us whether or not Ravenna is connected to something else, until we go and try to set a focus and then see if it's sending food anywhere and where that might be. I don't know if there's any way to check that ahead of time. That's complaint number one, but that's fairly minor, but I think it would be nice to know. The other thing, though, is keep an eye over here on the food section. I'm going to switch from growing town back to fishing town. Ravenna is now sending its food to Rome, but you don't see that here. In fact, if I switch to another tab and switch back, it still doesn't show it. If I close the town details and reopen it, it still doesn't show it. What I have to do is exit out of the town completely, then reopen it, then I can confirm that it's sending the food to Rome. So it's that much easier to think that that system doesn't work because it doesn't refresh instantly. But the big thing for me was that in the preview build I was playing, this information was literally not present, and it was leading me to think that this just wasn't information that was available. And I kept saying that through the Let's Play. Now, that Let's Play started on a preview build, but at some point, I think as of episode 3, I was on the release build at that point, which means for the vast majority of this Let's Play as Rome, this information has been present, but I didn't realize it. I probably opened the screen a couple times and just skipped past it, mostly because I was skipping past it here, because this was the only place where I could see, not on this screen rather, but on the city screen, this was the only place that it would show any food income from an external source whatsoever. But it turns out that this information has been here for a little bit, and I hadn't realized that that got added in. So yeah, because I thought, well, no, that information doesn't exist, so why would I go looking for it? Anywho, thanks a lot for watching. I just wanted to make a video clarifying it, both to correct what I probably complained about a couple of times in my Let's Play, but also because this is really important and useful information for all players, generally speaking, to be able to confirm things. In particular, the important thing is, if ever you go in to get a town and you give it a focus, but for some reason it's not connected to any of your cities, it's important to know that it's not sending its food anywhere. This has happened to me in one of my games, one of my practice games. After I did a peace deal with someone in a war, I took a city that was too far away and wasn't connected to anything. So one could imagine, perhaps if I went to war with Amina here and pieced out and took Janet, it's possible Janet, well, because it's got a coastal thing, it might work differently, but let's say Janet wasn't on the coast. And this is exactly the situation that was in my other game. I took a city that was behind enemy lines, was not on the coast, and this city was disconnected from my trade network. The dates or whatever resources that it had in its borders, I wasn't able to slot into any of my cities because it wasn't connected to the trade network. But it also meant that if that town was then converted into something like a fishing town or a farming town, then it wasn't sending its food anywhere, which meant there was no point to doing that, which means the correct thing to do would be to keep that town either as just a growing town, so it just keeps getting bigger, so that at some point later, hopefully we'll get it connected, or in fact, convert it to a city at that point, so that at least its food and its production could be used locally for its own purpose. And yeah, you still can't tell, as far as I can tell, you still can't tell if something is connected unless you try to turn it into something like a fishing town or one of those, and then see if it's sending its food anywhere. But the fact that the information is now present is a huge deal. Anyway, I just wanted to go and address that as a clarification. Yeah. If you spot anything else in my videos that appears to be inaccurate, some of it could be a pure mistake, some of it might be a change in versions, but in any case, 100% let me know, because the thing I hate the most in life is when someone repeats incorrect information. Oh, by the way, why couldn't I build a building on the desert tile over here? I hadn't realized, apparently, I think it was this game, I think it was this tile, right? I hadn't realized that we hadn't expanding our urban districts over there. And that maybe it wasn't connected, which is why it couldn't do it. That may have been the case. I'm not entirely sure if that was the issue. But like, for example, I can't build the barracks over here. So I think that was it, that the urban districts hadn't been spread, which is why I couldn't build the bath over there. And in hindsight, I would have built my urban buildings in a slightly different order so that I could have done that. But I had known at some point that urban districts had to be connected to one another, but I might have forgotten it that case and or assumed that it already was and was just being kind of dense about the thing. But so that's another point of clarification that I'm not going to make a standalone video about, but you know, the sort of thing that, like, yeah, thank you very much for pointing those things out. Much appreciated. All right, see you next time, folks. Bye-bye.